We are awaiting an update from North Carolina's governor as millions of Americans brace for Hurricane Florence as the storm of a lifetime heads right for the Carolina coast. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Sandra Smith.
And I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. Cat 4 hurricane could start hitting land late tomorrow night, bringing life-threatening winds and torrential rain throughout the night Thursday into Friday, possibly Saturday now as well. North Carolina's governor warning coastal residents do not bet on your life on riding out this monster.
And this very dangerous hurricane also slowing down, which is very important, which could make Florence a storm surge machine.
So we kick off this hour live with Team Fox coverage. Griff Jenkins, Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. We begin with Adam Klotz live in the Fox Extreme Weather Center for the latest on what we're getting at this hour. Adam, what are you saying?
Hey there, guys. Well, you talked about the real big story with this system, and that is it's slowing down, and that's going to be a problem. Winds still strong, 130 miles an hour. It's a Category 4 storm. You see it inching closer and closer to the U.S. coast at this hour. We still have a little while until it gets there. Staying a Category 4 storm before eventually really pumping the brakes, falling to a Category 3. This is getting into Friday morning. This next spot, Saturday morning. So suddenly you see you were just crawling there, which means, yes, storm surge. It means heavier rains. It means a whole lot of problems for folks in this area if this slows down to the degree that currently the models are suggesting it's going to do so. This is one of our tropical models, and it will give you an idea here with an hour-by-hour forecast. By getting close to land there on Friday, hovering all the way through the weekend, this is now Sunday morning, inland a little bit, rain still falling. That could be a lot of heavy rain, just a long period of time for rain to continue to be picked up in the ocean and drop there right along the Carolina coast. Could turn out to be some very big numbers. Now, this is just one potential model here. What could happen that would be good is if this stalled just a little bit out to sea. Some of this heaviest rain could fall off coast. If it moves just a little bit inland, 20, 30 miles, suddenly you're talking about several feet of rain, maybe 30, 40 inches in some locations. That is still possible at this point. Widespread, though, we're looking at it getting anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of rain across the entire state of North Carolina, perhaps stretching down into South Carolina as well. So this is going to be a rainmaker as well as a windmaker, as well as storm surge. So we still have those hurricane warnings stretching from central South Carolina all the way up to the Outer Banks. That's going to be something that continues to maybe move and even stretch farther to the south if we see this system move that direction. Right. The storm surge is going to be the other concern, as you mentioned, 6 to 12 feet. Wouldn't be surprised, and again, that's going to be strongest wherever this storm ultimately approaches the shore.
The North Carolina governor is speaking now. Adam, what's the water temperature there off the coast now? Do you have that for us?
I do have it. It's right around 84 to 85 degrees. You need 80-degree water to fuel these, so it's warm. It's going to pick up that water and drop it.
Unfortunately, you're right. Thank you so much, Adam Klotz, on that. Roy Cooper, the governor from North Carolina, is now talking. Let's go there.
For those not under an evacuation order, finish your preparations today if you haven't already. Move to safety if your home is at risk. Bring in supplies if it's not. Plan to be without power for days. Understand that the rain may last for days and not hours. And this may be a marathon, not a sprint. This storm threatens life. The forecast shows a storm surge higher than many homes. The National Weather Service has just said it will be unbelievably damaging, and they can't emphasize that enough. Violent winds can blow down power lines and trees. Heavy, sustained rain that can flood our rivers and low-lying ground will be coming. And expect this storm to batter our state for days. Floodplain experts at the North Carolina Emergency Management have been modeling the storm's projected impacts. And from the storm surge alone, tens of thousands of structures are expected to be flooded in North Carolina. We are sharing that information with local officials so that they can prepare. Shelters began opening yesterday, with more opening today, to take people in who've been displaced by evacuations. There are at least 16 shelters that are open now, and we are truly grateful for the volunteers, the Red Cross, and others who are helping us. I've authorized more North Carolina National Guard soldiers to report for duty. By 7 p.m. today, 2,800 soldiers will be on active duty, joined by even more on standby. These soldiers are directed to preserve life and safety and provide route clearance of roads and support communications and logistics. Prisons and jails in vulnerable areas are being evacuated as well. Long-term care facilities have been urged to work with local emergency management officials to ensure resident and patient safety. Today, our state parks and museums are closed, state universities have canceled classes, and many public schools are closing as well, plus providing their buildings as shelters. No matter where this storm comes ashore, it will have widespread, significant impacts in North Carolina. The coast will feel the blast first thing in the morning with damaging, life-threatening surge, winds, and rain. Those of you in central North Carolina should be prepared to feel the impact of the storm from Thursday night through the weekend due to the sustained rainfall and persistent wind. And western North Carolina residents should be prepared for heavy rain. As we remember earlier this year, that can trigger mudslides and road closings. In short, every county and every person in North Carolina needs to stay alert and to take this storm seriously. Yesterday, I ordered a state evacuation of North Carolina's barrier islands from the Virginia border to the South Carolina line. And thanks to our local partners, many evacuation orders are in place for other areas. And I urge residents to heed those orders. For those not under evacuation orders, gather your emergency supplies if you haven't already. Food, water, flashlights, extra batteries, medications, important documents if you need to evacuate. Remember to make plans for your pets and clear your yard of debris that can cause damage in high winds. Finally, download the Ready NC app for updates and to learn the weather about the storm, and call 211 for information or to connect you with local resources. I want to thank everyone across our state helping us get ready for this storm. And I want to introduce part of North Carolina's team here to provide input for you. To my far right here is Mike Sprayberry, Director of Emergency Management. Next is Colonel Glenn McNeil, the Commander of the State Highway Patrol. Immediately behind me is Dr. Mandy Cohen, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. We also have Secretary Jim Trogdon, the Secretary of Transportation, to my immediate left. We have our Federal Coordinating Officer from FEMA, Albie Lewis, who is here with us in the middle there. And of course, we have the General of the North Carolina National Guard, Major General Gregory Lusk, who's here. So I'm going to recognize some of these for updates, and then we will take your questions. So Mike Sprayberry, we'll begin with you.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. We continue to urge all North Carolina residents and visitors to comply with local evacuation orders from our local jurisdictions. I'd also like to thank our county partners for all their hard work as we prepare for the impacts of Hurricane Florence. The State Emergency Operations Center is activated at level 2. We anticipate going to a level 1 full up tonight. Of course, we're on a 24-hour schedule. We are ramping up with additional National Guard, as you've just heard the governor refer to, as well as more swiftwater rescue boats, search and rescue task forces, helicopters, ambulances, and a whole host of other assets to include commodities. We've positioned some of these assets forward, and we also have staged others locally in Garner. Our federal, state, volunteer, and private sector partners stand ready to provide the full spectrum of disaster response capability to Hurricane Florence. And thank you very much for your support today.
Colonel McNeil, the commander of the State Highway Patrol.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. The State Highway Patrol continues to make appropriate preparations for this powerful storm as it approaches. Troopers statewide have been placed on alert to ensure that they are ready should they be called into need at a moment's occurrence. In part, this allows us to be readily organized and allocate members to the affected areas. Yesterday, in partnership with the Department of Transportation, and we remain to do so today, members assisted with the evacuation process along our ferry terminals and along the Outer Banks. Additionally, the patrol is removing
One of the headlines there from Roy
abandoned
Cooper, the
vehicles
governor of North Carolina, at a rally today. He says this is a marathon and not a sprint, which is a pretty firm warning that you need the preparation now.
The patrol at this time
If you consider this could be not a 24-hour event, but a 48 or 72-hour event. It seems to be, for many, that's the forecast and the direction it's headed.
The governor is saying expect this storm to batter our state for days. Do not try to ride it out. It will have what he called significant impacts. Expect the first blast tomorrow morning.
The Rear Admiral Keith Smith was the U.S. Coast Guard. He's in charge of this area between New Jersey down to North Carolina. Sir, are you with us now? Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Tell us what your men and women are doing on sea right now and what they're telling you.
are in place for our
Right now we are basically in a position to get all of our resources into a safe haven. We've gone out and done some search and rescue patrols, let mariners know to take safe haven. But right now we're in a position to put our resources in, going north and south of the storm, and basically get into position to respond once the storm makes landfall, and then be in a position to respond after the storm makes landfall.
Rear Admiral Keith Smith is joining us by phone. Can you give us some sense of what you are seeing and hearing, and give us some perspective? This is not the first time, obviously, that you have gone through a significant storm.
No, this is not, and unfortunately for the state of North Carolina, this is not unusual. So what makes this storm a little bit unique is just the uncertainty of it. It's making a lot of different movements at the end, but we're working very closely with our state and local and federal partners as we try to figure out where this is going to make landfall. You know, the Coast Guard remains always ready to respond, but the most important thing is making sure that people heed the warnings of the local officials. We're trying to make sure that they respond to the notifications of the state and local officials, and not be on the water, get off the water, and not get on the water, because if they're on the water, there's not much we can do. We are in a position now where we're putting our people in safe havens, not ready to be on the water, and to be ready to respond once the storm makes landfall. So that's really the main thing, is to try to be ready to respond once the storm makes landfall, because right now there's not much we can do as this thing gets closer and closer to the shore. Yeah. People, I think, are doing a good job of responding. They seem to be listening to the warnings. They see this magnitude of the storm approaching the shoreline. So I think they're listening, and that's a good thing. And we're just trying to be ready to respond once this thing does make landfall. And working very closely with our partners.
Do you work in coordination with the National Hurricane Center? How are you getting your information?
Well, we're getting through a lot of different sources. So we do have connections with FEMA. We have connections with the National Weather Service. We have a direct line, so we're getting some information there. And we're working basically with FEMA and all the other federal partners and stuff. So we have connections and coordination calls basically about 3 or 4 times a day. So making sure we're synced and we're all operating from the same system, same information. So we're all making decisions based on collective information from the same sources.
So many different scenarios could still play out here. Obviously, the best and the worst case scenarios are still trying to be predicted, and anything could change at any moment. What are you most concerned about at this moment as far as the direction of this storm and the potential impact?
Well, yeah, and just on that piece, so we made some last-minute adjustments to some of our helicopters and aircraft. We were going to send some down to Savannah on our helicopters to relocate them. We made some adjustments at the last minute to send them north based on the trajectory of the storm. So just on that, we've had to make some last-minute adjustments to what we were going to do to some of our assets to put them in safe haven. So I think on the trajectory of the storm, I mean, it's now heading more south. I think the biggest concern we have is where it's going to stall and the amount of rainfall that it's going to produce. We were very concerned about it obviously hitting as a Category 4, making landfall with the high winds, at the high surge, if it hits at high tide. causing the high surge and things like that were probably the biggest concerns initially. Now, as it starts to head south and where it stalls out at, if it stalls out on in certain areas, it causes greater problems for us and stuff. I think our initial concern was if it makes landfall at high tide with the maximum amount of winds, that was our initial concern. Now I think we're a little bit concerned about where it stalls out at as it moves a little bit more to the south.
It's certainly a coordinated effort, and it's a multi-state effort. And I just wanted to share with you a statement that was just put out by the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, saying 50 airmen, aircrafts, boats preparing to stage at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware to assist impacted regions. New York stands ready with additional response and recovery assets and personnel. A lot more resources certainly, sir, could be needed.
Yes, ma'am. No, I think when this thing makes landfall, so additionally, the Coast Guard will respond. If this thing stalls over and causes great flooding, this could be catastrophic. And so Coast Guard will respond. We'll be ready to respond. But the other challenge that you have is that you'll have a lot of aircraft flying in a very congested area, trying to manage that in an area that may not have the ability to manage that. So we're dealing with a lot of potential scenarios here. So getting a lot of resources in is good. Trying to manage all those resources will be a challenge for the state. We're connected very closely with the state and all the other agencies. But yes, I think this could be very catastrophic. Trying to manage all those, having Coast Guard, having a lot of other agencies in there, and making sure that we're coordinating that effort is going to be a challenge.
We've got a reporter on the beach there in North Carolina. I'm going to get to in a moment. But just one last question here. Richard Burr, the senator from North Carolina, a moment ago, was speaking with Sandra and me, and he said in all of his time, he's seen a lot of hurricanes in North Carolina. He has property on the shore in Nags Head. He's never seen a better prepared governmental response than this one. If he's right about that, what's different this time?
I think the coordination. I mean, as we talk, I talked to the governor. I reached out to the governor of North Carolina 2 days ago and talked to everybody seems to be, there's talk. I think last year we had the 2 Category 4 hurricanes that made landfall. I think we continue to learn how to work better. So I think we learn from each one of these storms, and I think we get better. So I think FEMA, all the federal response agencies, the states, I mean, we've been through a few of these, so I think it's just the coordination. We take the lessons learned, we apply those to each storm, and I think we get better prepared each time.
Well, sir, we don't want to take any more of your time. We know you have a lot of work to do. The Rear Admiral Keith Smith, Commander, 5th Coast Guard District, thank you for your time this morning, and best to you and all of your teams in all these efforts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and we appreciate the support.
Thank you. Meanwhile, Griff Jenkins is live in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, where folks have just hours left to get out. Those evacuation orders, are they heeding those?
Well, Sandra, not everyone is, and they've got to be out by 8 o'clock tonight. Just take a look here. It's a gorgeous day on the beach. There's a few people down here already taking a look. But what Admiral Smith was referring to is a unique situation. It's really a quadruple threat. It's, of course, the hurricane wind and the storm surge, but the extreme flooding and the extended rainfall is the third and fourth components that's really going to make this challenging, even if you have predispositioned the National Guard and other resources, and they're more prepared than ever, because it was just 2 years ago, just inland in towns like Kinston, New Bern, Jacksonville, in Hurricane Matthew, that they flooded 20 feet, some houses underwater. Well, they haven't even fully recovered, and people here are worried about it, and some of the people here are staying because they don't want to get trapped, unable to get back in. It's going to be a lot of questions as this storm approaches, but for all intents and purposes, if you're here in Atlantic Beach or the surrounding Caratech area, you need to get off the island. They're saying it's not safe to be here. You need to get out.
And
Sandra?
Griff, to you as well. Stay safe. Thank you for the report. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader